human-made tragedies, and deadly pandemics. They've all affected our world in ways we can hardly imagine. These events left deep scars on humanity and shaped the planet as we know it today. The Black Death was a pandemic of staggering proportions, killing an estimated 75 to 200 million people across Europe, Asia, and North Africa. Believed to have originated in Central Asia, the plague traveled via trade routes, carried by infected fleas on rats. Entire cities were wiped out as the disease spread at an alarming rate, causing fever, boils, and ultimately death within days. The social impact was profound. Europe lost nearly 1/3 of its population, leading to labor shortages, economic collapse, and upheavals in feudal society. The plague also spurred advancements in medicine and public health as people sought to understand and control the mysterious disease. The Black Death remains a grim reminder of how vulnerable humanity can be to invisible threats. The 1931 Chinese floods are considered the deadliest natural disaster in recorded history. Triggered by a combination of heavy rainfall, melting snow, and poor infrastructure along the Yangtze, Yellow, and Huai rivers, the floods submerged vast areas of central China. An estimated 3 to 4 million people lost their lives due to drowning, famine, and disease, while millions more were displaced. Entire villages were washed away, and survivors were left stranded without food or shelter. The floods highlighted the urgent need for improved infrastructure and disaster preparedness, but they also exposed the devastating power of nature when it combines with human vulnerability. The Chernobyl nuclear disaster in Ukraine is one of history's worst human-made catastrophes. On April 26, 1986, a reactor at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant exploded during a safety test, releasing massive amounts of radioactive material into the atmosphere. The immediate death toll was relatively low. 31 people died from the explosion and acute radiation sickness, but the long-term effects were devastating. Hundreds of thousands were displaced, and the radioactive fallout led to increased cancer rates, birth defects, and environmental damage. Chernobyl remains a haunting reminder of the risks of nuclear energy and the need for stringent safety measures. On December 26, 2004, one of the most devastating tsunamis in modern history struck after a 9.1 magnitude earthquake in the Indian Ocean. The tsunami impacted 14 countries, including Indonesia, Thailand, Sri Lanka, and India, killing over 230,000 people. The massive waves destroyed entire coastal communities, leaving millions homeless and without access to basic necessities. The disaster also exposed the lack of warning systems in the region, prompting global efforts to improve tsunami detection and preparedness. Despite the tragedy, the international response to the Indian Ocean tsunami demonstrated the power of global cooperation in times of crisis. The Spanish flu of 1918 was one of the deadliest pandemics in history, infecting nearly 1/3 of the world's population and killing an estimated 50 million people. Unlike typical influenza strains, the Spanish flu disproportionately affected young adults, with many dying within days of showing symptoms. Hospitals were overwhelmed, and communities resorted to mass graves as the death toll soared. The pandemic coincided with the end of World War I, exacerbating its impact on already strained healthcare systems. The Spanish flu reshaped public health systems, highlighting the need for surveillance, vaccines, and coordinated responses to global health crises. In 1815, Mount Tambora in Indonesia erupted in one of the most powerful volcanic events in recorded history. The explosion killed over 71,000 people, but its effects were felt far beyond the region. The eruption released massive amounts of ash and sulfur dioxide into the atmosphere, leading to the Year Without a Summer in 1816. Crops failed across the globe, causing widespread famine and food riots in Europe and North America. The eruption serves as a chilling example of how natural events can trigger global climate crises. The atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki during World War II remain two of the most devastating human-made disasters. On August 6th and 9th, 1945, the United States dropped nuclear bombs on the two Japanese cities, killing over 200,000 people, many instantly and others from radiation exposure in the months and years that followed. The bombings effectively ended World War II, but came at an unimaginable human cost. Entire neighborhoods were vaporized, and survivors, known as hibakusha, faced lifelong health complications. These bombings marked the dawn of the nuclear age and the terrifying power of atomic weapons. The Great Fire of London began on September 2nd, 1666, in a bakery on Pudding Lane. Over the next 4 days, it engulfed much of the city, destroying 13,000 homes, 87 churches, and countless businesses. Although the official death toll was low, the fire displaced tens of thousands of people and devastated London's economy. However, it also prompted major urban reforms, including fire-resistant building materials and organized fire brigades. The Great Fire of London is remembered as both a disaster and a catalyst for modern urban planning. The Krakatoa Eruption in 1883 was one of the most violent volcanic explosions in history. Located in Indonesia, the volcano erupted with a force so powerful it was heard 3,000 miles away. The eruption caused massive tsunamis that killed over 36,000 people and spewed ash into the atmosphere, lowering global temperatures for years. Entire islands were obliterated, and sunsets around the world were tinged red from the ash clouds. Krakatoa remains a symbol of nature's raw and destructive power. The sinking of the RMS Titanic on April 15, 1912, is one of history's most infamous maritime disasters. The ship, deemed unsinkable, struck an iceberg during its maiden voyage and sank within hours, killing over 1,500 passengers and crew. The disaster exposed the lack of lifeboats and safety measures on board, leading to sweeping changes in maritime regulations. The Titanic's story continues to captivate the world, serving as a poignant reminder of human hubris and the unpredictable power of nature. The 1960 Valdivia Earthquake in Chile is the strongest earthquake ever recorded, with a magnitude of 9.5. It struck on May 22, 1960, causing widespread destruction across southern Chile and triggering tsunamis that reached as far as Japan, Hawaii, and the Philippines. The earthquake lasted an unprecedented 10 minutes, releasing energy equivalent to 1,000 atomic bombs. Over 5,700 lives were lost in Chile, with tens of thousands displaced, and entire towns like Valdivia were destroyed. The subsequent tsunami claimed additional lives across the Pacific, with waves reaching heights of 24 meters. The Valdivia earthquake reshaped the region's geography, lowering the coastline in some areas and creating new lakes. It remains the ultimate testament to the Earth's raw tectonic power. Hurricane Katrina was one of the deadliest and costliest hurricanes in U.S. history. Forming in August 2005, it reached Category 5 status before making landfall in Louisiana and Mississippi. With winds exceeding 280 kilometers per hour, Katrina caused catastrophic flooding, particularly in New Orleans, where levee failures submerged 80% of the city. Over 1,800 lives were lost, and damages exceeded $125 billion, making it the costliest natural disaster in American history. Katrina exposed critical flaws in disaster preparedness and response, leading to nationwide reforms in emergency management. Its impact on communities and infrastructure serves as a stark warning about the growing risks of extreme weather. Disasters, whether natural, human-made, or biological, remind us of the fragility of life and the power of resilience. From pandemics to volcanic eruptions, these events have changed our world forever. If you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, and leave a comment, joining us for more incredible stories on Facts Zone.